Yeah, sorry about that. You'll never see that again. As I said, welcome to the Dirty Merc. We've been traveling a good few years, and since we retired, we decided that we wanted to do a little bit more camping. What we didn't want to do is get a caravan, a white hat, and travel at 20 below the speed limit everywhere we went. We still like camping in the car. We're still young enough to get out. So what we did is modified an old Mercedes-Benz, an ML500. And this series will be about what we've done to the car in order to make it usable for us. What we don't like is buying stuff straight off the shelf that's heavy or it's not fit for purpose. So a lot of the time, we just make our own stuff in order to be able to satiate our needs for when we go camping. So what we'll do in this episode is quickly go over everything in the car. And then for the episodes that follow, we'll go into more detail about refrigeration, about water, about recovery, about the vehicle itself, our tent, our lighting, our batteries, all that sort of stuff. But for now, let's just go for a quick tour around the car and see how we go.
So this is the Dirty Merc. It's 2014 ML500. I think the Americans call them an ML550. 4.7 litre V8, twin turbocharged, adjustable suspension, all that sort of stuff. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when I get into why we chose this particular car. So here's the back. Most of it's custom built, and look, it's easy to do. I know that either a smart chimp or a dumb kid could do it, so therefore I could do it. On the right hand side you can see that there's a plywood cabinet, for want of a better word. That cabinet, I originally had drawers in there, but the drawers weigh 30 kilos each. That cabinet's made of 9mm marine ply covered in carpet. As I said, easy to do, and the whole thing weighs 7 kilos. So I saved myself over 20 kilos just by getting rid of the drawers and putting something else in. So what's in the drawers? Up the top. So up the top is the 12-volt Starlink. How to make it, you can just see that on YouTube. You can go and get the bits off Amazon and put it together. And what it does is it saves you about 5 amps, I suppose. It's because you don't have to run your AC converter, AC-DC converter in order to do it. So inside there is all the guts of that. I just plug in a modem. I power it from that. I plug the modem in there, switch that switch on, plug that into the Starlink, and then I'm right to go. And it only draws a couple of amps instead of a whole heap that it would take if you used the AC. Underneath here, left-hand side, that's the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the moment. They hold 450 mils each, and they're just little things you get from Amazon. And the snacks over there. Over here is the charging station. So in here, I've got 10 USB chargers. You can see there's chargers in there, and a couple of cigarette ones as well. And what we do is that we'll just put our battery banks or our phones or whatever in there, and we can charge up to 10 things at once. I find that to be absolutely necessary, because otherwise we've got cords and stuff going everywhere in the back of the car. So it's been really good, that thing. Because it came with the kit, I got the little voltage meter as well in there. So that pretty much covers the top. Underneath here, there's 2 more spaces that you can put stuff. I put some of our dry goods in there, and they're exactly the same width as one of those popular bags that you buy from a popular four-wheel drive store. Underneath that's the microwave. The microwave is permanently wired in towards the 3000 watt inverter. I just put that over the top of it in case it goes loose. And inside is the toaster, of course. Oh, that's what I didn't mention. This up the top there is 240 volts as well, and we use that for the toaster or the blender or whatever we need to. So moving over to the left hand side, up the top is just the temperature gauge. I've just got 2 remote temperature gauges sitting in the fridge, one in the fridge, one in the freezer. Underneath that is a Topaji water gauge. And the difference between that and most water gauges, this one works on an impeller, and it's pretty good. I tested it. It's plus or minus maybe 15 or 20 mil over a litre, so that's good. There's your tap. That tap is connected down to this thing here, which normally you just turn it on and you get some water, but if you need to actually do anything or wash anything up, then we pull out this thing, pumps it down, and there you've got your water, and you can just use that. What we do a lot of the times when we're washing up is we do a lot of rinsing, so that's what I use this thing for, and it's just a bidet washer, a bum washer, and what we use that for is to spray things if we need to do some rinsing, and it's also useful to do your feet or something like that if you really need to. So that's the bottom. Okay, so on the left hand side, this is the cover for the breakfast bar. So in there I've got coffee in there, then tea and sugar, and the little coffee maker in there. Over there is the stuff that we use fairly regularly, so it'll be coffee, salt, hand wash, detergent. There's a little bucket underneath there so that any of this, if it drips, it gets down, and of course some spray oil and some oil as well. This is one of the only 2 knives that we use. That's just a little magnetic block so that when it goes on there, it sits on there fine. If you just pan back a bit, then I was talking about this thing, and I'll put it up there for the time being, but it's been quite good for us. Okay, so down to the stove. This is an induction stove that just see it's plugged in here. I just normally keep it plugged in, but I can undo it if I want to. Comes out to there. This one's a tow kit, and I really like it because it's variable. You don't just get on or off. So if it's on full blast, you're getting maybe 100 amps or something, but you can put it right down so that it only draws 5 or 10 amps. So I was talking before about this thing. What this is, I went up to a store that makes water pipes, and they make water pipe out of obviously safe for consumption plastic, and just bought a sheet of it. So turn it over and it becomes our cutting board. You can see it's all cut up there as well, but then when it's not in use, when you put it up the top, it stops things from sliding around or falling out. In the top drawer we have just the normal sort of stuff I suppose you'd have for a quick meal or for breakfast or for coffee or tea, so that they're nice and forks. I've got another little fishing knife there, grater, that sort of stuff. Next one down, we like these double wall glasses. Because they keep things really cool. They come in these foam containers, so I just put the foam container in there. Coffee cup, and in there we've just got we should put more in there, but I've got plates in there at the moment. We need to put some bowls in there as well, I suppose. So as far as this is concerned, this thing will do your cooking, and then if you need to do your washing up, as I showed you before, this thing comes out. But this thing here, if you pull it right out, it's got legs underneath it, and so you've got plenty of room to do your prep and that sort of stuff. One problem is obviously you can't get the water out to here when it's pulled all the way up, but that's okay. And the legs fold down. I'm not going to do that. So this whole thing was pre-bought as an outdoor kitchen for a couple of $100 from one of the camping shops, and this thing here, the whole of this was supposed to be the fridge slide. So what we did is we instead of putting the fridge slide on, I built another cabinet. As I said, smart chimp dumb kid could build it, and all it does is it slides out on the fridge slide, and that becomes your pantry then. So that in there I've got the camp oven down the bottom. I can also fit little billies and stuff like that in it. That's all the cabling for the solar. I usually put my tools and stuff in there that we're going to need. A bit of flour, there's some dunny rolls down the back, and then plates, buckets, and the sort of stuff that you're going to use all the time. So when this thing goes in, it locks in. I've just got a little elastic bit to make sure this thing stays shut. This one I should have one on too, that it doesn't really move too much. So that pretty much really covers the back. As far as the switches are concerned up the top here, these are once again just bought from a company, and they're not right. Auxiliary runs the Starlink, and it also runs upstairs in the tent. The rear is for the rear lights. If you just back up a bit up onto that one, and then we've got a couple of lights that we can use as well. That one is compressor, as I said before. This one turns the taps on and off. That's the fridge, so it's always on. And this light bar, I couldn't find the right switch, but what that does, it turns on your selfie. If you can possibly get the camera in there, then that's the selfie. So that's the selfie, just sort of sits in there, and it's connected up to this great big antenna over here. And what that does is amplify any 4G signal that you get, and then you won't be able to see that, but there's a little aerial that's stuck on the inside of that, and that's what transmits it as well. And we find that to be pretty good. Sometimes if there's no signal, you get nothing, but that's all there is to it. So down in there, which you can barely see, I think, is the air compressor. It's just stuck in the wheel well, and it's out of the way there. There's a tank for it, and it sits underneath here as well. There's a big void under there. It used to have the spare tyre in it, so I just put some water stuff like the pipes and also the filter. I use a Thirsty Nomad filter, and then also the tank for the compressor as well. So to make the compressor work, just got a tube, and inside there is the compressor and the gauge, and I can get all 4 tyres just from that. Pulling that thing out and pulling it around. So that's the compressor. Right, so going from the background to the side, we use an upright fridge. It's a cheap one in Glacier, but what we like about it is that it has got a completely separate freezer to the fridge, which means that we can pack a lot of frozen stuff in there, and it's all good. We made a couple of mods because the key lock here isn't all that effective, so I just stuck and screwed a couple of plugs in there so that we can make the thing stay shut when it has to. Underneath there, I said before, that's the other end of the bag that holds the water, the big bladder. I also have some piping that comes directly from the tank here, and the reason I did that is because it doesn't go through the filter, so that you'll get some decent sort of pressure out of it, and that's just connected up to this. That's a 10-meter hose. Turn that on and away you go. We've also found we just stick a lot of stuff in here, like this thing up here. Put my fishing rods in there. I've got this, which is a spear that I can also use as a net for when we go yabbying. Bit of cleaning gear there. There's always stuff in all the pockets. But that pretty much covers the back. The fridge is pretty good, but I'll go into that in a separate episode because we're pretty happy with having an upright, and also we're pretty happy that the thing only weighs less than 20 kilos. That pretty much covers the back. Just have a look at the back, and we took out the back seats, you can see. Down the bottom on the right hand side is a bladder. That's one of those ones that goes over the top of the wheel well. It holds 125 litres, but we only put probably 80 or 90 in it so that we don't get too heavy. The 2 cords that are there are wrong. The 2 hoses that are there, one's a breather hose and the other one's the filler hose. So we just connect that thing up to the tap and we're all good to go. As I said, I took the seats out, so what you've got here is just a piece of ply that I put over the top of it. Underneath that is 2 200 amp lithium batteries. Of course, the shunt for measuring your current and all that sort of stuff is underneath it. And then down there, you can probably just see that's just an inverter, it's a 3000 watt. So master switch to turn everything off if you need to. If we've got shore power, then we've got the AC/DC charger. You can't fit a proper tyre in it, so the tyre we had to put in the back. First aid kit up the top, that's the back of the fridge. That is the storage box for the Starlink, and that gauge there, I'll explain a little bit more about that, but basically that's an extra thing I put on to make sure that the fridge operates effectively. So up the top there, a couple of max tracks. The top of that is looks like a real estate agent sign, but we use that for the projector so that we can see at night. That void there holds 2 chairs. We use Darche chairs because they're the smallest ones to fit in. And then all the other stuff, the FIG, the fishing, the pegs, the fire, and the DC. That's all just got stuff that we need. Behind that, or underneath it, is our tripod, and then there's a gap behind there, and underneath that I've got all the recovery gear, and there's also a little stove and a DC jump starter as well, just a cheap one that fits in there. So that's pretty much the back. Also, we keep the table here. That's one of the interesting things, is that where the table is, it's right up against the fridge, and the fridge cools itself through a radiator or some sort of cooling device that goes up and down the length of that fridge, and that's half of the reason, or the main reason, that we had to put the additional cooling in. So that's about it for the back.
Actually, that's about it for the episode. I've yapped on for way too long. We were staying at a place called the Cod Hole in New South Wales. It's a lovely little spot. Only 3 spaces there for camping, but they supplied firewood and there's toilets. You can go fishing, all that sort of stuff. The road in's pretty good. The road out was also pretty good. It's about 30 k's of dirt, but we got hailed on the way out, so we weren't real happy about that. It's part of the Waterfall Way. There's plenty on YouTube about it. It's a lovely area between Armidale and almost to the coast in New South Wales. Plenty of camping, not too many people, and some spectacular sights. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. Sorry about the terrible editing, but I'll get better at that, and maybe see you next time.